All right, well, let's talk about Word. The Word just makes sense, right? Because we're writing content. This really seems to fit with what we think that these generative AI tools can do well right now. So you can access Copilot in Word in two different places, and this is important to note because they act in two different ways. So if you access it on your document, right? So where my blinking cursor is, where this Copilot, black and white Copilot logo is. That's what you use when you want to draft content in the document, right? So that is for doing things that are going to go in that document. On the side panel, right? So that'd be my button up here on the top right, is where you can ask questions of the document, ask it to summarize it, ask it to do things like that. But over here is to write content. Over here is to ask it about the document. And what I tried this out because I was like, that seemed a little weird. But I mean, test it out and see for you. When I went to this button on the right and I asked it to write something, it would not add it into the Word document, right? I had to be over here to add it into the Word document. So I thought that was interesting that there's kind of these two little things going. So I want to talk about like 6 core ways that you can use Copilot in Word. So one is summarizing content. Second one would be to create a first draft of a document. Third one would be to create content based on content you already have, right? Whether that is content already in the current document or in a different document that you want to reference. We can use it to rewrite content. We can transform content into a table, which again is kind of like the write a poem thing that is like feels a little bit out of left field, but it's an interesting one to see. And then we can chat with Copilot about the document itself. So if we look first at summarizing content, so if you open up a document that someone sends you or you've made, you will see, if you have Copilot, a summary of the document at the top of the page, right? So it creates that summary at the top of the page. You can click view more and read all of that, right? So it likes to summarize documents that already exist. If you don't see that for some reason, you can go to the Copilot button and you can ask for a summary of it. Or there'll be a button there that asks you to do a summary, right? So it will summarize documents for you to make some sense of those. To create a first draft of a document, you would do that in the document itself, right? But you would get this, draft with Copilot. This little prompt's going to come up. It's going to let you, describe what you want to write. You can give it notes. You can give it an outline. You can reference content you want added to it. So that content can be files, it can be meetings, it can be emails that you attach to it. But you kind of give it as much info as it needs to create that first draft of what you are creating, right? So here, this was, you can add multiple references, right? So maybe you have a document and a PowerPoint that you want it to reference. Make it clear what you want it to do, and then give it those references that you want it to use. And again, it will use that Microsoft Graph and find that information and the LLM to write what you want. Now, this is an interesting one, right? And this gets to a question that Todd asked us in a previous session we did, right? That relates to SharePoint. So I asked it to write a report based on these 2 documents that are in a SharePoint, and I have access to these documents in SharePoint. So I can find these documents in SharePoint. But when I asked it to write something on it, it couldn't find those documents, right? So I have found that some files I have access to in SharePoint cannot be accessed by Copilot. So again, that probably gets into a permissions thing that I don't fully understand. But that's an experience I've had. It's like when I really dig in to try to find files and some of them don't work. So, but we can create that first draft from something. We can create content based on content that already exists too. And so if you've already started content, the Inspire Me button is where Copilot is really just going to keep the writing going based on what you've written so far. Okay. So if you've been writing something and you feel like you're stuck and it's like, I need this to talk about this idea, but I'm not sure how, give it a description of what you want it to do, click the Inspire Me button, and then it's going to continue doing some writing for you that you can go back and then revise or change to fit what you want it to do. So can keep you going with your writing there. It can rewrite content. So if you highlight content in your document, you'll see this Copilot button appear. And then on the left of it. And then you'll have the option here to write a prompt of what you want it to, to do next with that content. There is an option to auto rewrite it, and auto rewrite will write 3 different versions of that and let you, scroll through those to see which of those 3 versions that you prefer. And then visualize as a table, right? That I mentioned before is an interesting one. And so really, no matter what you give it, it's going to make that into a table. So here's an article about, all-time leading home run hitters in Chicago Cubs history, and it's got some numbers in the article. And I highlighted this and said visualize as a table. And sure enough, it gave me a table here of the player name, how many home runs they had, the years they played. In the, the order is not right, but I guess I didn't necessarily tell it to get the order right. I just said to visualize as a table, right? I don't get to give it a prompt there too. But it turned that in a table, and that was data that makes sense to turn into a table. But even if you give it things that maybe aren't data related, it can turn things into a table. So this was just some text on different breeds of dogs, and I highlighted all and said visualize as a table, and you see that it made a table related to that. So tables just happens to be another one of these things that these tools are pretty good at doing. So even when you're just in Copilot itself and you've got some information, asking it to format that as a table is something that it's good at categorizing things and making that table for you. All right, and then chat with Copilot. So again, this goes to the other version of Copilot, which is the one that would be on your right-hand side. So you can click that Copilot button to see example prompts that it has, or enter your own prompt to do things with it, right? So it's got things like summarize this doc. It's got create an image, right? Where it will create an image over here on the right, and then you've got to manually bring that image into your document. Or, how can I more concisely describe? So just like almost like having, Copilot or ChatGPT open up in another window, you've got this available there to do some research that you can then bring into your document if you want to do that. It's got a prompt gallery, right? So it's got things you can go through. You can save those prompts again so that you have access to them. So it's got suggested ones. You can write your own and save those, but you've got the ability to kind of create that prompt library that you'll use in Word